Welcome to a new edition of the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino. On this episode, we talk with Christian author and ceramic artist Morgan McCarver. She was born and raised in Spartanburg, South Carolina. Her work is inspired by her female mentors of past and present, as well as her connection to Victorian corsetry through her journey. She received an art degree with a ceramics concentration and a double minor in art history and business in 2019 from Anderson University in Anderson, South Carolina. These days, she has studios in Asheville, North Carolina and Spartanburg, South Carolina. Her art can be found in various galleries around the Carolinas and Tennessee. Her first book, God the Artist, Revealing God's Creative Side Through Pottery, will be released with Morgan James Publishing in 2024. Enjoy this interview. Hi, Morgan.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Everything's great. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you for taking a minute out today.
Oh, yeah. I was listening to your podcast. I really like what you do, like with the questions and everything. You've got some really great guests on there as well. So that was really neat to just hear about other people doing amazing things around the world.
Yeah. And that's the thing about this. I think in this modern world of being divided as we are, the therapy has been kind of getting into podcasting and talking to everybody. And we're all kind of in the same boat. You know, we're all working to, live our best lives and our dreams and doing what we can to, support our families and the people that are around us. I think we're much more alike than we're disalike.
Right. I would agree with that.
It's good. And I'm glad that we had the chance to connect. And before we get into your life, I want to know, how did you get through the last 3.5 years with the pandemic? How did you get through it? And how has it changed you?
Well, it has changed a lot. Of course, it changed a lot of people's lives in a lot of ways. And then it didn't seem to change a lot of things at the same time. So just from my background, I recognize that I can be a germaphobe. And so the pandemic was a really terrifying time for me, just starting out and realizing just kind of what was going on in the world. And then also in a way feeling validated, like, yes, there are germs that we need to be aware of. But it was a challenging time. I actually lost my uncle during that time. And that was really difficult for our family. And just seeing other families going through similar things. But it also, there's silver linings and everything. Through that experience, I actually ended up moving, to a different state where I am now. And, really kind of getting more experience in my own art world. So I was working at a ceramic store at the time, and the pandemic, everything, retail was crazy. And I realized for myself, I really needed to get more experience in my own body of work. So I went to work for a potter about an hour away during the pandemic. So just, lessening my human interaction and really focusing on my art and really learning from that other potter. And through that, I gained a lot of experience and am still living here now. And it's really just changed my life in that way.
So let's get to the exact essence of what you do for a living. And I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of third graders at a career day. And one of the kids looks up at you and says, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How would you answer that child?
Sure. I would answer that child in several ways. So my main job is I'm a contracts coordinator. That's where I spend most of my time. So it just your stereotypical business type job, but I do have my own business that I spend all of my free time working on. So in that way, I would answer the third grader saying, I have my own pottery business and I share studio space with a lot of other amazing artists. And I'm able to work on the pieces I want to make when I want to make them. And I sell them through different stores and different pottery festivals in the area.
So take me back to where you were born and raised and how these seeds got into you to be creative and to be an entrepreneur. How did that happen?
Well, I was raised in upstate South Carolina. And it started really when I was young. I kind of attribute it all back to family. My grandmother would keep me while my parents worked, and she would make homemade Play-Doh. And so I really say like that was my earliest experience with a clay-like medium, just playing with Play-Doh, and just that childlike joy. And then that grew to playing outside, and in the Carolinas, there's a lot of red mud that actually is clay that you can process. And I did do that at a time. But, as an elementary schooler, just playing outside, playing in nature, playing with the mud, making little mud pots, and then watching them disintegrate with the rain because we didn't know how to fire them or anything. And then that really just kind of kept growing. I remember in fourth grade, we read a book. It's called A Single Shard. And it really just kind of made me realize like the intricacies and all of the techniques that go into ceramics. And that really sparked my love of ceramics. And the program was great. The teachers had someone come in and help us throw pottery on the wheel. And so that kind of, again, just there were these little elements in my life that just keep bringing me back to ceramics. And eventually I do end up going to college for that. So I do have a ceramics degree actually from Anderson University, South Carolina.
So who's been kind of a hero for you in your life?
There have been so many, of course, teachers, especially English teachers, just really any teacher who was able to share their passion and just seeing what they were passionate about and how they went about just digging deeply into that very specific subject. I kind of used that in my own life, being very passionate about ceramics and history and culture and really delving into that as well. So I've had so many great mentors, from teachers to Sunday school leaders, discipleship leaders in my church, and of course my family as well.
So if you can meet anybody alive on the planet right now who's been inspirational or motivating for you, who would you love to meet and talk to?
Oh, wow. That's a really hard question. Well, I am in the process of getting a book published. It's called God the Artist, and it's kind of my ceramics experience and understanding Christianity from my background as a Christian, and then also from my background in ceramics. And so I use a lot of Bible verses that reference clay and pottery and translate them from a biblical Christian standpoint, but also from my ceramics background. And so I would probably like to meet the author who wrote A Single Shard. Her name is Linda Sue Park. And that just the power of words and what they can do and shape your life. That would be the person I'd love to meet and just compare notes, get author advice from her, and see where that goes.
So what is the motivation for you every day to be who you are, to create, to be an entrepreneur, to do all of the things that you do? What is it that gets you out of bed and motivates you every day?
Honestly, the joy of creating is a big thing for me. I just love those extra moments I have in the studio or wherever to be able to create. And so that's a big motivation. And then, of course, my faith as well. Just being a child of God and knowing that his will for my life is doing what I'm doing right now until he tells me otherwise. And so those two things, not every day is the most fun or the most perfect, but just knowing that life keeps going. Like you said, circling back to the pandemic, life keeps going. And so, we've just got to pursue through that.
So what's been one of the best fan letters or client responses you've gotten from your work?
That's a great question too. Just hearing when people use my pottery and how they use it, if it's using it themselves or giving them as gifts, just seeing my work being used in everyday life, because it is completely acceptable, and I appreciate people who buy pieces to just look at them. But when I hear, oh, I use your mug every day in the morning when I drink coffee or something like that, and just knowing that they're able to connect with a piece that I spent a lot of time on, and I put a lot of my creativity and my personality into those pieces, and then hearing that those pieces are kind of kept alive in a way through other people enjoying them just as much as I am. Those are just some of the best comments and feedback that an artist could hope for.
So let's say you have a dream tonight. You run into a much younger version of yourself, and you could give that version of you a piece of advice based on the life you've led so far, the wisdom you've gained. What advice would you give your younger self?
not to worry all the time. It's easier said than done. But instead of worrying about what if this happens, what if that happens, just to really go for it. And I have kind of realized that as I've gotten more experienced and been in the art world, every day, just realizing you can't move forward if you don't try. And so just trying things and seeing what happens and knowing it's okay if it doesn't work out. But you've got to try it at least. You've got to apply for the shows. You've got to set your dreams high and then see what happens.
So everyone out there sees you in a different light: family, friends, clients, colleagues, those that buy your work, but ultimately you live your life. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I love this question. I've heard you ask this on other podcasts you've done, and it's so interesting to see what everybody says.
Yeah.
But first off, I would say that I'm a child of God. I am a Christian, and I know that I'm going to heaven one day. So I know that I'm living my life to honor God as best as I can. I would say that I'm an artist, specifically a ceramic artist, but I do dabble in painting, drawing, sewing. I've done just about everything, but I don't think I've done welding yet. But anyway, I would say I'm an artist. I am now an author. I'm still wrapping my head around actually identifying as an author, but that is another identity I can have. And then I would say I'm a lifelong student. I just crave research. I love learning things and just diving as deep as I can into whatever topic I'm interested in at the moment, and just really learning the history and the culture and where this topic springs up. For instance, wild clay, like I mentioned, playing with that red dirt in my childhood, just looking at different areas in the world and different colors of wild clays and how you process them and everything that goes into turning just dirt on the ground into a finished fired piece. Just rabbit holes like that. I just love researching things like that. So I would say that I love to study.
I love that description. That's wonderful. So let me ask you this. If you could witness any event in human history that happened, where would you love to have been to see firsthand?
As you know, history is not always great.
Yeah.
So it would depend on where I am in the situation, but I have a lot of inspiration pulled from early Victorian eras. So I would think like Victorian England would be really just beautiful to see. Of course, I understand it's not amazing for everyone. Of course, slavery was still very popular across the world at the time. But I would love to go back and like meet Queen Victoria, and just see the inspiration, in real life. I think that would be really amazing.
So if anyone, Morgan, out there wants to learn more about you, pick up your creative output, your wares, anything about your life, where can they go? Where's the best place?
The best place would probably be my website, and it's just www.morganmccarver.com, short and sweet. And from there, you can sign up for my newsletter. You can get information about my book, God the Artist, and you can also follow me on social media as well.
Wonderful. Morgan, I'm so glad that we had the chance to connect. You're doing wonderful work. Thank you for your time and story, and best of luck with everything.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me. This has been awesome.
Thanks for tuning in to another famous interview with Joe Dimino, where we cover the world of art, literature, business, spirituality, music, and more from around the globe. Our esteemed theme music was composed and produced by the great E.E. Pointer of Kansas City's River Cow Orchestra. If you want to hear more interviews, visit the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino channel on YouTube. You can also find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thanks again for listening, and until next time.